Hello, welcome to FHE on the Road with Christine Stevenson. This podcast is designed to connect the people and the places from the past with your lives today, with 5-minute stories and facts from church history. Save these stories for when you are traveling through these areas to bring history to life. Okay, welcome back to FHE on the Road with Christine. Today I'm going to talk about the landscape of the Laie, Hawaii temple. And I actually remember taking a temples class in college, and she taught us about the Maternity Fountains, and ever since then I have been obsessed with the Laie, Hawaii temple landscape. I just think it is so incredible. So hopefully you like it too. Hopefully you learned something. So the landscape of the Laie temple in Hawaii is full of rich symbolism, history, and beauty. The art surrounding the temple points visitors to our loving Heavenly Father. This timeless artwork demonstrates the way the Lord guides and directs His children from the beginning of time. The art outside the temple, from the fountains, the sculpture, and the friezes on top of the temple, each are there to teach and remind God's children of His eternal love for each of us. So let's start with the Maternity Fountain. When you walk onto the grounds of the Laie temple, you'll see beautiful fountain pools at the base of the temple, the water from the top pool cascading to the next. At the crest of 3 pools, there's a beautiful relief depicting a Hawaiian mother with her children. The artist, Avard, while explaining the art, said, quote, "I designed a group to represent Hawaiian motherhood, or as it is called, maternity. Motherhood was represented by a Hawaiian lady with a great shell. She was pouring the water out of this great shell onto her children." End of quote. So the shell depicted in the relief is an oyster shell, which often represents fertility, femininity, and beauty. The mother depicted is holding an oyster shell over the children while the water is pouring out of the shell onto these children. This beautiful depiction represents the mother's influence and love for her children. The pools where the water falls represents the impact of a righteous mother on generations, from one generation to the next, with the pools of water cascading from one pool to the next. And I love that idea. I love that each mother represents generations, right? It's not just her children, but a righteous mother can influence generation after generation. Sherry Dew said, when she was speaking about mother, she said, quote, "When we understand the magnitude of motherhood, it becomes clear why prophets have been so protective of mother's most sacred role. While we tend to equate motherhood solely with maternity, in the Lord's language, the word mother has layers of meaning. Of all the words they could have chosen to define her role and her essence, both God the Father and Adam called Eve, quote, the mother of all living, and they did so before she ever bore a child. Like Eve, our motherhood began before we were born, just as worthy men were foreordained to hold the priesthood in mortality. Righteous women were endowed premortally with the privilege of motherhood. Motherhood is more than bearing children, though it is certainly that. It is the essence of who we are as women. It defines our very identity, our divine stature and nature, and unique traits our Father gave us." End of quote. President Gordon B. Hinckley stated, "God planted within women something divine." And I like that quote. The prophet Joseph F. Smith was sent to the Sandwich Islands as a 15-year-old boy to serve a mission. At one point in his mission, he became deathly ill, and I recorded a podcast on that I can link here, and was nursed back to health and cared for by a faithful Hawaiian mother. Her love and influence over this young future prophet is incalculable. Although she was not his biological mother, she was mother to him, and her influence affected generations. As we are even talking about it today, she helped change the life of Joseph F. Smith. He really needed her. And I love that, such a tribute to Hawaiian mothers and also mothers throughout the whole world who bring God into the lives of their children, and how that really can change generations. Joseph F. Smith said that his mission to Hawaii changed his life. At one point, he described his early life as, quote, "a comet or a fiery meteor without balance or guide," end of quote. Joseph F. credited his mission to Hawaii for having, quote, "restored my equilibrium and fixed the laws which have governed my subsequent life," end of quote. The Lord sent the perfect people to help Joseph F. Smith learn the lessons he needed, and this Hawaiian mother fulfilled a great purpose during this time with him. And I love that depiction of Hawaiian mothers. Okay, so there's two other things that I want to talk about on the Laie, Hawaii temple. The first one is there's a statue. This statue depicts Lehi from the Book of Mormon blessing his son Joseph. And in October 1917, in a general conference, President Samuel Woolley shared his belief that the building of the temple in Hawaii was, quote, a fulfillment of the promise of the Lord made to Lehi, who, in blessing his son, Joseph promised him that all of his seed would not be lost, end of quote. Woolley further suggested that a remnant of Joseph's descendants ended up in Hawaii, Samoa, and New Zealand and other Pacific islands, and that the Lord, quote, sent his servants there in the early days of our history to fulfill his promises, end of quote. I think it's so incredible learning about these blessings that happened hundreds of years before the restoration of the gospel. I love seeing it come full circle. I think it's so incredible. So this statue on the temple grounds, it symbolizes God's promise to Lehi's son, realized through the Hawaiian people. Although we may not know how this ancestral connection occurred, the statue remains symbolic of the latter-day gathering of Israel that has taken place in Hawaii and across Polynesia. And the last part of the exterior of the temple that I want to talk about is the exterior panels on the top of the Hawaii temple. So Leo, one of the artists involved, was deeply interested in religious history, and he came up with an incredible idea to depict these pivotal moments on the entire upper ridge of the Laie temple. He worked out sketches for 4 extensive panels or friezes that would encircle the temple. His idea was to make each side of the temple a depiction of each major scriptural era or dispensation. So he did the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Book of Mormon, and the Latter Days. And that is on the top of the Hawaii temple, the Laie Hawaii temple. And so the two artists, Leo and Avard, plan was to portray each panel with several characteristics from each corresponding era in a way that it would be inspirational as well as decorative. Leo even consulted his friend, apostle, and scriptural scholar, David O. McKay, about the choice and arrangement of these characters. The architect of the temple then arranged for Leo and Avard to present their ambitious plans to the First Presidency, who gave their approval. The artists researched each time period along with the clothing that would have been worn during that time. And you think of research at that time. In the early 1900s, it would have been hard to figure this stuff out. Each panel is about 24 feet long, including 30 figures, each 4 feet high. To give the relief shadow and strength to the friezes, the upper part of the figures are made in full round, and the lower part is low relief so that the upper part tips forward to give the figures better visibility when viewed from below. And all the friezes include a total of 123 nearly life-size figures. So it's kind of a big deal. It's pretty awesome. This art atop the Laie temple represents the love of God from all generations of time. A loving Heavenly Father is calling his children to him and has throughout time. Today we are blessed to live in the final dispensation of the fullness of times, knowing God has given us all we need to gather and prepare for his second coming and live with our Heavenly Father again. So there's this talk by Jeffrey R. Holland, and it's called The Greatest of All Dispensations. He gave it in 2009, so it's been a little while. And he actually just quotes 2 of the prophets before. And he quotes Joseph Smith saying, quote, "The building up of Zion is a cause that has interested the people of God in every age. It is a theme upon which prophets, priests, and kings have dwelt with particular delight. They have looked forward with joyful anticipation to the day in which we live, and fired with heavenly and joyful anticipation that they have sung and written and prophesied of this our day. We are the favored people that God has chosen to bring about the latter day glory." End of quote. So that one was by Joseph Smith, and this one's by Wilford Woodruff. And it says, quote, "The Almighty is with this people. We shall have all the revelations that we will need if we will do our duty and obey the commandments of God. While I live, I want to do my duty. I want the Latter-day Saints to do their duty. Their responsibility is great and mighty. The eyes of God and all the holy prophets are watching us. This is the great dispensation that has been spoken of ever since the world began. We are gathered together by the power and commandments of God. We are doing the work of God. Let us fill our mission." End of quote. And I thought both of those quotes were so good to go with the top of the Laie Hawaii temple. I love that all of those dispensations are depicted and that we can see the hand of God throughout every single one of the dispensations. And our Heavenly Father is gathering his people throughout the whole earth once again. And I love it. I think it's so incredible. So yes, these are some things to look for in the landscape of the Laie Hawaii temple. And it is incredible. Hopefully you learned something. Thanks. Thank you for listening to FHE on the road today. We hope you enjoyed what you've heard. Please like, subscribe, and share with anyone who'd be interested in these stories. Thanks.